Oh, but you didn't tell me, is it? Okay. So we were doing this verse here. I don't think we finished the English of this here. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فانتقمنا من فأغرقناهم في اليم بأنهم كذبوا بآياتنا وكانوا عنها غافلين. That we done that what we discussed thus far was this here, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, um, after the several warnings, repeatedly warning them through the lice, through the locusts, through the blood, through the frogs, etc., etc., the people of Fir'aun, they refused to yield, they refused to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they refused to accept Allah ta'ala, they refused to accept the risalat of Musa alayhi salam, they refused to release the Bani Israel, because remember, they had been keeping the Bani Israel as they had been keeping the Bani Israel as slaves, etc. So eventually, when all hope was lost, then Allah Ta'ala decided to destroy them. Allah Ta'ala gave instruction to Musa alayhi salam to set out with the Bani Israel in the morning, and then they followed them, and that's when they made the destruction. As Musa alayhi salam and his people were passing through the ocean, they passed comfortably on the other side, and when Fir'aun and his people came in the middle of the ocean, the part of the ocean, then Allah Ta'ala brought the oceans together and destroyed them. Right. So we discussed this in detail that you're so busy with this. وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ, and when we intend that we will show favor upon those who are considered weak in the land, وَنَجْعَلَهُمْ, and we will make them the leaders, وَنَجْعَلَهُمُ الْوَارِثِينَ, we will make them the heirs of this dunya, وَنُمَكِّنَ لَهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ, and we will establish them on the earth, وَنُرِيَ فِرْعَوْنَ وَهَامَانَ, and then we will show Fir'aun and Haman and the army مَا كَانُوا يَحْذَرُونَ, that they were fearing. So here above in this verse here, in fact, both the above promises are one the same. The promise made by the Prophet Musa, it was obviously derived by the promise of Allah Ta'ala. So Allah Ta'ala, as despondent as they had become the people of Musa alayhi salam, that they were not being delivered, they were not being saved from Fir'aun and his tyranny. But Musa alayhi salam continued reminding them that, look, the promise, wa'adullahi haq, the promise of Allah is true. It will take a time to come, but eventually it will manifest itself. So the favor of Allah upon the people of Israel was the reward of their patience, as the verse has specified, saying, because they stood patient. That is, they were favored by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for they being patient in their distress. This is an understated indication that any people, individual, following the same example in time and in any place shall get the same reward. So, although here Allah Ta'ala is speaking about the Bani Israel, that they stood patient in the face of hardship, and they placed their trust in Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Today, anybody that exercises the same patience despite the adverse conditions, besides the difficulty, if they remain firm and they put their trust in Allah Ta'ala, then a time will come. There's a beautiful hadith also, I can't remember, but the hadith goes something like this, وَلَوْ بَعْدَ حِينٍ. Can you remember the hadith? That Allah Ta'ala, I will definitely help my servant, وَلَوْ بَعْدَ حِينٍ, even if it's after a small while. Can you remember the hadith? We must check out for the hadith. When Allah Ta'ala says, I will definitely help my oppressed or my servant that is in distress, وَلَوْ بَعْدَ حِينٍ, even if it's after a while. So yes, the promise of Allah is true, it will come, even if it will take a little while, right? So the Prophet Musa, when making the promise of gaining the rule over the land, had emphatically said that perseverance, patience, and seeking help from Allah was the only key to success. So sometimes when we are in difficulty, we are in a quagmire, seems like we are stuck in a maze and there's no way out of the maze, you should never ever lose hope. What is that? حتى يقول الرسول والذين آمنوا معه متى نصر الله ألا إن نصر الله قريب. The help of Allah is close. So Sheikh Hassan al-Basri was a great sage, a Sufi, said that the verse suggested that in case one is not as powerful as to defend himself against an enemy, the best way to success is to remain patient. So sometimes you don't have the physical means to fight against the enemy. Like here, the Bani Israel, they don't have the physical means to defend themselves against Fir'aun, the Coptics. So then you must exercise patience. You see that a person who has been wrong tries to take revenge on his own by doing wrong to his opponent. Allah Ta'ala leaves him alone and lets him manage his own affairs, ending in success or facing failure. So when you want to initiate and take the matter in your own hand, then Allah Ta'ala leave it in your hands. But if you entrust it to Allah Ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala will be the dispenser of your affairs. On the contrary, one seeks help from Allah Ta'ala against affliction from others and remains patient. Allah Ta'ala opens the door of success upon him. As above promise for the rule over the land was fulfilled, Allah Ta'ala, the same kind of promise Allah Ta'ala made with the people of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So yeah, the really similar is, remember the Muslims in Makkah al-Mukarramah, they were also experienced similar conditions. They were brutalized, they were terrorized. Remember as Bilal radiallahu ta'ala how he was made to lay on the hot sands of Makkah, as Sumayya radiallahu ta'ala, she was stabbed with a spear in her womb until she aborted. So this was also their period of test, this was their period of trial, similar to how the Bani Israel. Hence Allah Ta'ala says, وعد الله الذين آمنوا منكم وعملوا الصالحات لا يستخلفنهم في الأرض كما استخلف الذين من قبلهم. Allah Ta'ala has promised those of you who believe and do good deeds that He will make them inherit the land as He had inherited, or He made heirs those who were before them. So you have to continue doing what you have to do. You have to do your good deeds, etc. Allah Ta'ala, the opening will eventually come. As the Israelites witnessed the fulfillment of Allah's promise by having their rule over the land, similarly the Muslim Ummah witnessed the fulfillment of Allah's promise in the form of the sovereignty of the major part of the earth. Remember the time of the four caliphs, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, large tracts of land come under the control of the Muslims. It is not justified that Israel did not observe patience, because when Prophet Musa asked them to be patient, they said that they were persecuted before and after it come to them. Right? So firstly, because their patience against the constant persecution at the hands of their own people is a proven fact. Secondly, the above statement may not be a complaint, but a some expression of the grief. So here we say that the Israelites or the Jews or the people of Musa, they did exercise patience. Although, remember, when Musa promised the second genocide, remember after Fir'aun vanquished him, then he said, I'm going to kill the men and the young boys and I'm going to spare the women. Remember, then the Bani Israel said, we experienced something like this before. Are we going to experience it again? So here, the Mufti Sahib is saying that that was not a complaint to say that they were complaining against the decree and the decision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That sometimes you mention something, not ala wajhi tashakki, not to complain, but you're just mentioning, look, are we going to experience this again now for a second time? So it was not that to say that they were not they were out of patience or they were objecting to the decree of Allah Ta'ala. Secondly, the above statement might not be a complaint, but a some expression of the grief. Thereafter, the verse said, وَدَمَّرْنَا مَا كَانَ يَصْنَعُ فِرْعَوْنُ وَقَوْمُهُ وَمَا كَانُوا يَعْرِشُونَ. And we destroyed whatever Pharaoh and his people used to build. We destroyed what they used to raise high. This referred to the buildings they raised high and the trees, what they used to build. Many also refer to the ill designs against the Prophet Musa. Makanes can also refer to the plots they had against Musa alayhi salam. What they used to raise high is a reference to their mansions and the trees. The events discussed up to this point were related to the destruction of Pharaoh and his people. سوف فانتقمنا منهم فأغرقناهم في اليم بأنهم كذبوا بآياتنا وكانوا عنها غافلين. Discussing all the what? The destruction. After now, Allah Ta'ala decided now that the transgression was enough on the earth, they now need to be brought to book, right? The events discussed up to this point were related to the destruction of Pharaoh and his people. The next verses describe the victory and success of Israelites, followed by their insolence in spite of the blessings they received. So until this point in time, you can say they were on the right side of history. They were on the right side of history because they are the ones that will be oppressed. So that we say the events discussed at this point related to the destruction of Pharaoh and his people. The next verses describe the victory and success of the Israelites, followed by the insolence in spite of all the blessings they received from Allah Ta'ala. So now when we go forward, after they came to power, after they came to power, then unfortunately they lost the plot. They lost the plot. So then they went overboard. As is the case when a person is given power, then you again intoxicated. The exact same thing happened to them. As we can see even today, what they are doing. Before they were the victims of the Holocaust, they were the victims of the Nazis. But what are they doing today? Same thing, or maybe even worse. So these verses provide a kind of solace to the Holy Prophet against his grief and the obstinacy of the unbelievers by showing the annoyance of the early prophets at the hands of the people. So many a times in the Quran, Allah Ta'ala speaks, about the difficulties that the previous prophets experienced, that Musa alayhi salam, Noah alayhi salam, etc. And what is the idea behind this? Obviously is to inform us, to educate us. But one of the reasons, also one of the main reasons was as a consolation that to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that the people of Makkah, the Quraysh, they reject you, they don't accept, um, they're not accepting your message, etc. But do not become disheartened. Do not um, lose courage. Do not give up hope. This is the pattern in the past. In the past also, the prophets experienced the exact same thing. And then you, that will be warathatul anbiya, you will be the heirs of the anbiya alayhim salatu taslim. Your job is also going to convey, your job is also to convey the message. And then you also experience the same thing in your journey, in you conveying the truth, in you propagating the truth, etc. You're going to also experience um, disappointments. You're going to be met with failures. You're going to be met with rejection. People are not going to cotton onto your message. They're going to object to you, etc. So the exact same sunnah will play out through. It will play out, started in the time of Noah alayhi salam, and will play out till the end of time. Okay, we can read it in Arabic. There's still some time they read it in Arabic. So we're doing this verse, that we took revenge from them. So this is now the end point. This is the turning point. We discussed it. This is the turning point. يخبر تعالى أنهم لما تمردوا مع ابتلائه إياهم بالآيات الوارثة واحدة بعد واحدة. So remember what we're saying is this here is that this is now the turning point. Until this point in time, the Bani Israel were the oppressed. And then Allah Ta'ala took the Coptics, he took Fir'aun, etc. to task. He took them to task, and then they became now after they were put in position of power, then they became power drunk, and then they lost the plot again, right? Which often happens. Very rarely a person has got power, he's got unfettered control power, except that he will use it responsibly. Most of the time he will become power drunk and he will abuse that power. Can you read it first? يخبر تعالى أنه لما تمردوا مع ابتلائه جاءوا بالآيات المتوالية واحدة بعد واحدة انتقم منهم بإغراق إياهم. Yeah. So in this verse, فانتقمنا منهم وما كانوا يعرشون, right? يخبر تعالى أنهم لما أتوا. Allah is informing that these people لما أتوا وتمردوا, they transgressed, etc. مع ابتلائه إياهم, despite its test towards them. Allah Ta'ala's test towards them, right? مع ابتلائه, Allah Ta'ala test them, right? بالآيات المتواترة, with successive tests. Ummala, Difa, Dia, etc. One test after the other. Wahidatin ba'da wahidatin. Wahida because it's the sifat of right height. One test after the then intaqama minhum bighraqi iyahum fil yammi. Allah Ta'ala then now when so test after test. So as long as it was a test, they could turn towards Allah Ta'ala. But once there was no point of return, right? It wasn't a test, now it was a punishment. Right? Was so till that point in time there was a test. They could still turn to Allah Ta'ala after that. Right. So um, now Allah Ta'ala made the decision that now فَانْتَقَمَ مِنْهُمْ. Now Allah Ta'ala made the decision بإغراقه إياهم, that he will destroy them in the ocean في اليم والبحر الذي فرقه لموسى. It is the same ocean that Allah Ta'ala parted for Musa alayhi salam. فجاوزه وبنو إسرائيل معه. Then فجاوزه وبنو then he passed it, and the Bani Israel they passed successfully through it. Right? Carry on. Then ثم ورد فرعون وجنوده على أثرهم. So after Musa alayhi salam and his people successfully passed through the ocean, then Fir'aun. Now warada actually normally means come to a place of water. So then Fir'aun and his army, you can say like ala atharihim. Even in English, athar means steps. So they came in their steps. That's how there's a literal translation. But you can say came after them, pursued them. And even in English you say hot. You know, if you follow somebody, you came hot on his heels. You can say so. Musa alayhi salam and his people passed through the ocean and hot on the heels of what? Fir'aun and his army, right? Right. فَلَمَّا اسْتَكْمَلُوا, when they were completely in it, right? إِرْتَطَمَ عَلَيْهim. It closed. You check the إِرْتَطَمَ? Huh? It yeah, you say even in English you say the waves crash, isn't it? The crashing of the waves. So you can say the waves crashed upon them, crashed them up. إِرْتَطَمَ عَلَيْهim فَغُرِقُوا عَنْ آخِرِهِمْ. They were drowned till the last one of them, right? Right. So remember we discussed, we say, as long as it was a test and after that you could turn to, as long as there was a point where you could turn to Allah Ta'ala, we call it a test. But where there's no point of return, where Allah Ta'ala has made now the decision that you must be destroyed as a result of your disobedience, then that is now a punishment. That is now a bala. Look at the word there. That now it's bala'un, right? So, وَذَلِكَ بِسَبَبِ تَكْذِيبِهِمْ. That was because of them denying Allah Ta'ala, denying the wahdaniyat, denying Tawheed, denying Risalat, denying Musa alayhi salam has been as the chosen messenger that has come, right? وذلك بسبب تكذيبهم بآيات الله وتغافلهم عنها, and their negligence and their indifference. What? Their negligence and their indifference to the message of Musa alayhi salam, right? Right. So أخبر تعالى, Allah informs أن أورث القوم الذين كانوا يسرعون. Allah is informing that أورث القوم. I tell you, أورث means to make the heirs, right? So like how you say, if you give birth to a son, then your son is your heir. He will replace you. The day you are not there, he replace you. He will be in charge of your wealth, etc., etc. So same thing. What is meant here is that awratha means Allah Ta'ala entrusted, or he made in charge, or you can say he empowered. So akhbara Ta'ala is informing anna awratha al-qawm, he made in charge, he empowered alladhina kanu yustad'afun, those that were considered to be weak. Again, I tell you, considered to be weak. Why? Because they were not weak. As long as they had iman and they had faith and they were putting their trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they are not weak. So as long as you got your faith, your iman, your trust in Allah ta'ala, then you are not weak. Then you are the strongest person. Carry on. Yeah, so wahum banu Israel. So who are these people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then empowered them and put them into power whilst they were considered weak? Wahum banu Israel. They were the Banu Israel. Remember, Israel was Yaqub alayhi salam. They were the children of Yaqub alayhi salam, right? And then وَأَوْرَثَ الْقَوْمَ الَّذِي كَسَرُوا مَشَارِقَ الْأَرْضِ وَمَغَارِبَهَا. The east and the west of the lands, right? Allah Ta'ala made him in charge of it, right? كما قال تعالى, God says in the Quran the same thing what he made him mention, وَنُرِيدُ أَن نَمُنَّ عَلَى الَّذِينَ اسْتُضْعِفُوا. And when we intend that we will show من يمن ولا تمن ولا تمن سورة طاف لا يمنون عليك, right, same word, ولا تمنوا, right, ونريد أن نمن, we wish to show our favor على الذين استضعفوا في الأرض, upon the ones that they are considered weak, ونجعلهم, and we want to make them أئمة, leaders, ونجعلهم الوارثين, and we will make them the heirs. وقال تعالى, and Allah says in another place, وقال تعالى كم تركوا من جنات وعيون, how much did they leave behind from the gardens and the springs, وزروع, and the crops, ومقام كريم, and noble lofty places, ونعمة, and favors, كانوا فيها فاكهين, they were enjoying it, right? They left it, they were destroyed. And like that also, one day we will leave everything, and it will only be us in our أعمال. كم تركوا من جنات وعيون وزروع ومقام كريم. Subhanallah. Right. Right. وأورثناها قوما آخرين. Then I tell you, أورثنا, we made heirs. Or you can say this, we entrusted it. أورثنا to a different people. Mazin coming already. They're coming. وأورثنا قوما آخرين. وإن حسن البصري وقتادة في قوله مشارق الأرض والمغارب التي باركنا فيها, the east of the lands and the west of the lands, the ones that we bless in it, يعني الشام, that's referred to Syria. Okay, yes, Mwana, we'll stop there. So now the same link, you will go to Mishkat too. While the lessons are on here, just you mention that the one student that does Mishkat break time, Mishkat 1, Nazir, he's not here, he's ill, so there won't be Mishkat 1 today. There won't be Mishkat 1 with Nazir today. I need to inform him also. Subhanallah.